it's easy to become thinking about yourself like, oh, I want to get a cool house. I want to get a nice car. I want to do all these things. But really what drives you forward is having a compelling focus about something bigger than you.
Hey guys, it's Mindi Linscombe, your host of the Something New show, where we like to learn how to live a life worth celebrating. And today, from Phoenix, Arizona, actually Scottsdale, I have a good friend of mine, Mr. Jim Dew. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure, Mindy.
Yeah, so we're really glad to have you. I'm going to read a little bit about you for our listeners because they may not be familiar with all that you've done, but you are the co-founder of Dew Wealth Management with, I'm assuming, your wonderful wife.
Yes.
For 25 years, you guys have been serving entrepreneurs by creating fractional family offices, and we are one of your clients. And that is basically what you have created is for people that are not billionaires, but it is what billionaires use for their wealth planning. And Dew Wealth is an Inc. 5000 company for 3 years in a row as a great place to work, which is amazing. That means you're taking really good care of your team. You also, more importantly, have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs save millions in taxes and have helped them exit their companies for as much as $1.6 billion. So that's quite an accomplishment. If I had like an applause audio right now, I'd be like, yeah, because
Thank you, Mindy.
Seriously, first of all, we've already benefited from some of those tax strategies that you've taught us, and it's been just such an education, I would say, as an entrepreneur, 17 years in, to learn things and still be learning things because this is not our sweet spot. But, you know, we are good at our business, and I'm thinking that's what entrepreneurs come to you for. They're good at their actual niche, but not necessarily all the expertise that you offer. So I'd love for us to start by just hearing, I know you were a math teacher, and we talked about both being teachers, which is crazy. Yeah. What in the world led you? Tell us your origin story of what in the world led you from being a math teacher to saying, hey, I want to open a fractional family office.
Yeah, great question. And really, I have to go back to how I was raised. So I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, but my parents grew up in Ohio, and they were very poor when they grew up. By the time I came along, I was the youngest. They had moved to Tucson, and we were middle class, but I wouldn't have known it because we lived in a little crappy house in a crappy neighborhood. We drove cars till the wheels fell off. We had no carport or garage. Our cars would just park in the dirt on the side of the house. My mom never owned a dryer, always hung the clothes to dry. Anyway, I didn't know anyone who had money. No one in the neighborhood had money. I went to public schools, so I didn't see any utility to money. I saw no value in money. So when I was in college, I went to, you've probably heard of it, the Harvard of the Southwest. It's University of Arizona in Tucson. So I was getting a math degree, and I went to a counselor because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And she said, tell me what you're thinking. And I said, well, I don't care if I ever make any money. I just want to make a difference. And she said, well, if you don't care about making money, you're getting a math degree. You should be a math teacher. So I became a public school math teacher. Mimi and I started dating in college, and we ended up moving up to the Phoenix area. And that's where I started my teaching career. So I taught for 5 years. I loved the kids. I hated the system. So at the end of 5 years, I was looking for something else to do that involved numbers and that I still could make a difference. And someone said, hey, I've got an idea. You should be a financial advisor. So I said, okay. So I became a financial advisor. I was just shy of 30 years ago and started working in the Phoenix office in a New York brokerage firm. Well, I did everything from financial planning, investment management to compliance. And at the end of those 4 years, I realized that's a broken system too. It's run by brokerage firms, insurance companies, banks, and then the services and products that were being pushed weren't necessarily in the best interest of the clients. So in 1999, I went home and vented to my wife, Mimi, and after about 20 minutes, she shrugged her shoulders and said, start your own company. I was like, honey, what are you talking about? No one in my family's ever started a company. What do you mean? And she said, well, that's the only way you're going to be happy. You can't work in these big, structures that you're not comfortable with and you don't feel good about. So in 1999, we started our own company with her urging, and that was the first big thing. And then the second thing we realized is we wanted to work with entrepreneurs like us. So we specialized in that area, and then we learned what billionaires do. Billionaires create this thing called a family office. In fact, J.D. Rockefeller is credited with creating the first family office in 1882. So we thought, well, this is interesting, and I started asking around in my network. I've always had a pretty good network, and by chance, I get introduced to the grandson of a New York billionaire, and we hit it off. He's actually a client now. And he introduced me to the family. He said, if you want to fly to New York and learn what we do or how my family runs the family office, I can open the door for you. So I said, I jumped on the opportunity, flew to New York, spent time with the CEO. And then I had this epiphany. That's not just the best structure for a billionaire. It's the best structure for any entrepreneur. But there's one problem. They're very expensive to run. Even the smallest family offices are $2 million a year operating expenses. The biggest, like Elon Musk or Bezos or someone like that, are $30 million a year to run. So we knew that was out of our price range, but we thought, I wonder if we could create a similar model that would get the same results for ourselves. And if that works, maybe we can do it for other entrepreneurs. And that's really how we ended up doing what we do with what we call fractional family offices.
And for someone who doesn't know what a family office is, can you describe it?
Yeah, and so I'll tell you exactly what Rockefeller did. So the problem with most entrepreneurs is over their lifetime, they pick up an accountant, an attorney, an insurance agent, a banker. They get these different professionals. If you picture a wheel and you picture those like spokes on a wheel, they're usually not all A players. They're not talking to each other. There's no collaboration. No one's holding them accountable. But the worst part is the entrepreneur sitting in the middle trying to manage that team. So the problem is they pay too much in taxes. They don't have good asset protection. They're either overpaying for insurance or they have the wrong kinds of insurance.
Or underinsured.
Or underinsured. And definitely we see that a lot. Or they don't have, a good entity structure, or they don't have a good plan for the future. There's a bunch of things, or they're overpaying for all those professionals and not getting the ROI on those professionals. So Rockefeller had the same problem, but he was a pretty smart guy. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to hire all those professionals as full-time employees just working for my family. That's going to be their only job.
So a full-time banker, a full-time...
Yes, full-time accountant, full-time attorney, all full-time employees just working for the Rockefellers. Well, he put them in one office building. And he said, that's going to be my family office. And that's where the name originated. And that was when Rockefeller was worth about $18 million in 1882, which is a lot of money today. But then he died in 1937 worth $1.4 billion. He was the richest man on the planet. So part of the reason, not the whole reason, but part of the reason he became so rich and stayed so rich is because of this family office structure. So that's the family office. And then we just took that and made it so that people could fractionally use all the different professionals and have them organized and coordinated and held accountable, and then get similar results without the massive cost of running a family office the way billionaires have been running those for 150 years.
Yeah, and where do you find when you take on a new client, or even in the early days when you're starting, because I'm sure at the beginning of your business, you were working with every client, right? They were all yours at the very beginning,
yes.
Yours and Mimi's.
Yep.
And I'm just curious too, at the beginning and at the onset, and maybe even today, what do you feel like is the messiest part of an entrepreneur? Like when they come to you, where are they so broken?
Yeah, I call it the overwhelmed operator. And that's what happens is you start your career, or I call it the transformative wealth journey. And you start out as the eager entrepreneur. And that was us in 1999. We're so excited. We're going to change the world. We're going to work for ourselves. We're going to make a difference in all the lives of these clients. And then you realize you have no clients or no customers, depending on the business. So you hustle, market, sell. And then you have this, at least we did, this fantasy, it turns out, but this vision that if we just make $1 million of revenue, we'll be on easy street. All our problems will be solved. And so you're working toward that. And then when you get there, you move to the overwhelmed operator. And that's when you are working more than a lot of your employees. You're probably making less money than some of your employees. And it just seems like the world is like, on your shoulders, and you have no time. It's very stressful. And at that point, really you're thinking, I'm working so hard for my money. I wish my money was working for me. So if you have a good business model, then you move to stage 3, which is what we call the secure shareholder. And that's when you start working on your business instead of in your business, like the book, The E-Myth. And you start being an owner rather than an operator. And at that point, you start thinking about, hey, not only do I want to multiply my money, but I should probably protect my money also. And then hopefully you move to the final stage, and the stage that I hope all entrepreneurs move to, and that's the influential investor. And that's when you start thinking about, how is my money going to matter? And that's different for different entrepreneurs. Some want multi-generational wealth. Some want to serve charities or take care of people they love. But to make your money matter, you've got to have a vision of something bigger than you. Because one of the stresses while you're building as an entrepreneur is it's easy to become thinking about yourself like, oh, I want to get a cool house, I want to get a nice car, I want to do all these things. But really what drives you forward is having a compelling focus about something bigger than you. So with Mimi, when I met her in college, she was working 3 jobs, had no support from her family. And by the way, her family immigrated from Korea when she was 5 years old. So it was a very, very hard life. Her parents had a 2nd grade education. So when she was in college, she's working 3 jobs, putting herself through school. And when we were first married, we said, if we ever have any money, which we weren't sure we would, I was a school teacher, but if we ever have any money, we want to give back and help kids like her who have the aptitude and the attitude, but don't have the financial resources. And so that was our vision pulling us forward, is we're going to make our money matter by helping kids get out of poverty through education and scholarships. And we just awarded 2 full ride scholarships just a couple months ago, which is like,
oh my gosh, I have chills.
It was a dream come true for us.
And are they for, like, you had kids apply to your scholarship fund or something?
Yes, we had kids apply. And actually what happened was we were going to award 1 scholarship this year. We partner with a charity so that they have a group that actually vets all the applications, and then they narrow it to 3, and then we come in and make the final decision. But there were clearly 2 that were head and shoulders above the others. And so we just said, let's just do two scholarships. Yeah.
Full ride.
Full ride. Yeah.
To any university they want, or?
Yeah. They can use to any university any way they want. So what's interesting is, it really came about because we don't have kids, and a lot of our friends have kids, and they're always complaining about, the cost of tuition and stuff like that. And we said, we want to complain too. So we just created our own tuition to pay.
No, I love that though. I mean, is this something you think you're going to do annually or something like that?
Yeah. We have big dreams about that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I won't say them publicly on air, but Mimi just dropped a bomb on me probably a week ago about her vision for this, and it's way bigger than I would see, and that gets me anxious because it's this huge financial commitment, but she's like, we can do it, and so it's exciting. My point is that billionaires do a really good job at this. They have a compelling focus, and you should too. It doesn't matter if you have no money. You should create a vision of what it is that would make your money matter, and it's got to be bigger than you. It can't be just about you. It's great to have goals to go, one day I want to live in a such and such house, or I want to join a club, or I want to be able to go out to these kinds of dinners or on these kinds of vacations. Do that. That's important. But you'll find that that's fleeting, and even when you get there, you'll probably be disappointed. We have a lot of entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they get there and they go, I got this big house, I got this cool car, I've got everything I ever wanted, and somehow I don't feel fulfilled. Well, that's because it can't be about you. To really be fulfilled in life, to really feel like your money matters, it's got to be much bigger than you, and it's got to be about someone else. It's like they say, doing something for someone else is the most selfish act you can do because it makes you feel fantastic. And I always even tell, friends or people I know, if they get depressed or bummed out, I go, you know what? Go volunteer or go do something for someone else.
Yeah.
Because that's going to make you feel great. And it's going to pull, because when you're depressed, you're thinking about yourself. When you do something for someone else, you're not thinking about yourself, and that's how you actually, grow. So this is what every entrepreneur should do, is have some vision of how your money's going to matter, and that focus should pull you through the hard times.
I love it. Okay, I want to think through if somebody is, even if they're not an entrepreneur, I think all those professionals that you're talking about really matter to have the best candidates in your corner. So if you were to list off, hey, entrepreneur or not, anybody making an income, what are the types of, A-level people and players that you're saying this is important to have in your corner?
Yeah, and so we have 5 key areas we look at when we're evaluating professionals, and we've been doing this for 25 years. So we have a Rolodex of professionals that we tap to bring in when our entrepreneurs don't have the A players.
Yeah.
When we bring on a client, if they have A players, we keep them. So our model is not to replace the current advisors, only replace the ones that need replacing. So that Rolodex, you want to really think about, how do you build that team? And so the 5 areas that we focus on would be, education and credentials. You want to see what's their background, what's their knowledge, what's their credentials. You want to know what's their experience, how long have they been doing this, and specifically, how long have they been doing this for your type of client. So let's say you're taking an accountant. An accountant could be in business for 30 years. But if the accountant only has a few business owners and you're a business owner, that's not a good fit for you. You should go to an accountant who has 90% business owners, not 3 or 4, because they're not going to really have the skill set to handle a business owner. So what is their experience as it relates to you and your situation? Next would be, so let's see, education, credentials, experience, specialty. So what do they specialize in? And, think about attorneys.
That's exactly where my mind went. I was thinking, we don't just have one attorney. We have several, because we have employment attorneys that are specialized in employment law. We have some that are specialized in lease agreements, because we're landlords and tenants and all of that. And they would tell you straight up, that's not my specialty, but they can refer you. But then I think they need to be all the other things too.
Yes. Absolutely.
So even if they say this is an attorney that specializes in lease agreements, I'd still say, how long have you been doing it? What's the majority of your clients? Same question.
Same questions, right?
Yeah, sorry, keep going.
And then the fourth, I think we're on the fourth. The fourth is regulatory history. Most people, when they try to find out if they have a good attorney, accountant, investment advisor, they Google that person. And I'll just tell you a quick story about an investment advisor. I know I won't say his name, but he got into trouble in the state of Arizona. And I won't say what he got into trouble for, but they banned him in Arizona. So he moved to California, and he got relicensed in California. But he hired like an SEO expert to get that stuff. Like if you Googled him, you'd have to go to like page 11 to find out that his license was...
He had somebody bury it, right?
And you and I know that hardly anyone goes to page 2, or 3. No one goes to 4, right? And no one goes to 11. And so I would Google him for fun and could not find it page after page after page. But if I went to the regulatory website, boom, it would pop right up and I could see it. So when you're evaluating a professional, go to the regulatory website, and that could be State Board of Accountancy for accountants. It could be the State Bar Association for attorneys. It could be the State Insurance Corporation or company, for state insurance. What do they call it? State insurance, whatever they call it. State insurance regulatory for insurance. And investment advisors, you go to FINRA Broker Check, FINRA, FINRA Broker Check. That'll also get you to the SEC registered advisors as well. But you want to go to the regulatory website, because you're going to see complaint history, any problems they might have. And then the fifth thing is personality and responsiveness. So if they're not responsive to you, or their team isn't, even when you're trying to set up like an initial, when they're a prospect, if they can't, be responsive, they're never going to be responsive to you once you're a client. Responsiveness, and then personality. Let me just say this on personality. Often entrepreneurs want to find someone that's just like them, because that's who they like to hang out with, right? I want an accountant that thinks like me, or an attorney that thinks like me. And you really don't want to strive to do that, because there should be tension within the team. Because CPAs, for example, are usually definitely more conservative, and they're leaning away from any risk, right? And then you may have others on your wheel of professionals who's more risk taking. And so you want this tension as they're working it out. Now, you don't want to pick someone that you can't communicate with, or you don't feel like you can work with, but you want them to have a different opinion and a different philosophy than you. And the best example was Abraham Lincoln. There's one of my favorite books is called Team of Rivals. And what Abraham Lincoln did that no president I know of since I've been alive has done, including the current and whoever the next is, and that is he created in his cabinet, he put people that were of different parties, of different philosophies. He put people that hated each other. I mean, they were worried there might be fistfights in cabinet meetings. But he did that because he said, I want different opinions so that we can come collectively to the best decision in the end. And the same thing with your team. You don't want to have people who are going to get in fistfights, but you want to have people who are going to disagree a little bit and push back, because that's how you get to good decisions.
Absolutely. Well, I was just thinking to switch over to your leadership a little bit in your company. Now, how many people do you have working for you?
31.
31. And I know that that's been a work in progress in the sense of 25 years ago, it was not as seamless as it is today to recruit, hire, train, onboard, all the things, the people on your team. And I'm just thinking, what do you know now about building a team that you wish you knew back then?
Well, one thing, and this is really a tribute to my wife, Mimi, is she always has been focused on culture. And I have to say that I didn't support that a lot for the early years when we had a small team. I decided, everybody, do your job, right? Come work hard. You get a paycheck. We're nice,
We'll see you after work.
Right.
By 5 o'clock? Okay, bye-bye.
Right. And, that was the wrong attitude. Luckily, Mimi was involved. And so she was like, no, culture is very, very important. And I've seen first of all, how much work it is to create and keep a good culture. You have a great culture here. I walked in, people are walking up, smiling, introducing themselves. And, when you walk into any kind of establishment, you can usually tell, maybe not from one person, because you might get someone who's just happy all the time, even in a bad situation. But you talk to 3 or 4 people and you get a vibe for what the culture is like there. And there's a great culture here, and that's a tribute to you and Jordan. Thank you. It's been a lot of intentional work. We've done a lot of things for culture, and we have such a tight-knit team who pulls for each other, that cares for each other. And that is something that I wish I took more seriously, but, thank goodness for Mimi, because that kind of protected us from that problem. The other thing is, I think in the early days, I was very much like, I'm going to figure out the recipe that works, and I'm just going to repeat that over and over and over. And it's important to be able to give yourself some space and some quiet time to think about changing direction when appropriate. Because we completely changed our model, and we wouldn't have done that if we hadn't really thought about it. And for years, I was just doing the same thing over and over until I had this epiphany with this billionaire family. And that was what really caused us to change our model and to move forward that way. And then the other thing is, make sure as you're a business owner and as you're building, yes, increase your lifestyle. Yes, increase the things that you do for yourself to enjoy life, but also make sure there's a cushion. A cushion, and what I mean by that is that you are cash flowing more than what you're spending. Enough so you can survive the downturns, so you don't have to sell your house, you don't have to close down your business. And so if you have a change of direction, when we came up with this fractional family office, the only reason we could do it is because we had a ton of extra cash flow. And we just said, hey, this is what's in our heart. This feels like the right thing. Let's just try it, because we had other people in the industry that told us that seems like a really dumb model. Because first of all, it seems like too much work, because we're managing all these professionals. We're diving deep into taxes, asset protection, insurance in a way that other firms just don't do, like really deep stuff, as you guys know. And that's really hard. It takes a certain kind of professional to really know deep knowledge about these different areas, and the way we charge, the way people pay us, which is not the typical, we never take commissions. We're not an asset gathering firm. So we're not like, oh, you got to put all your investments with us and we charge a fee and that's the only way you get other services. We're just a monthly fixed fee for our services, and we're on month to month. Our clients are not on long-term agreements, which is a very different model. And so I was told, you're giving up too much revenue from other ways you can get paid. It's too much work. It's going to be way too hard. This is a dumb model. And Mimi and I sat down after we heard that for a couple times from people we respected. And then we said, so what? So what?
It feels right to you.
Feels good. It just feels in our heart. It feels like this is, and the way we built it was, this is what we would want for ourselves as entrepreneurs.
100, right? Yes.
Running a successful bridal shop can be challenging, but with the right support, it can also be incredibly rewarding. Hi, I'm Mindi Linscombe, founder of Bridal Owner Success School, aka Boss. After 17 years in the bridal industry, I've developed proven strategies that drive both positivity and profitability in your business. Through Boss, you'll receive insightful coaching, time-tested frameworks, and a community of bridal shop owners dedicated to helping each other succeed. Ready to boost your profitability and find more energy in your business? Visit bridalownersuccess.com and sign up for Boss today.
So I was just going to say, this topic right here really matters to me, because I think of my staff has to sell something, okay? I want them to feel like this is the best unimaginable deal that they could ever explain to someone. And if I don't see shock and awe when I explain the plan on their faces, then it's not good enough.
I love that.
And I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking all these crazy scenarios you just said, people said, nobody in the industry does that. But like your salespeople, I think, have shock and awe when they get to deliver those amazing benefits that are untraditional.
Yeah.
But make you unique.
Yes.
And then when your salespeople go to explain that to the customer, the excitement and enthusiasm is transferred. And I think that transaction right there is where all the game changer is. It's like, I just think, going the unbeaten path and saying, this is how we're going to do customer service. It may look completely different, and the terms may look absolutely not normal compared to the industry standards. But if we're going to offer these services at that level, I want to first deliver it to my team, and I love to see their face. Like, was that good? Do you feel excited about selling that? And then I hope your people feel so excited about selling. Do they feel so? I mean, I've been with a couple of your team members, but I'm thinking of one of your leadership team members at the last mastermind day we did, not this one, but the previous one, and how excited he was about how you're doing things unconventionally. And the shock and awe is definitely on his face, which transfers to the client. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, get this. We're going to do this for you, and you don't have to do this, and you don't have to do that. And normally you have to commit to this, but guess what? You don't have to with us.
Yeah.
We're just going to so over-deliver that you're going to want to be our customer for life.
Yes.
And so that's just the ethos of a good product to me is something where it's like, does it shock you and make you feel good that you're delivering such a great thing? And that's where you and Mimi said, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter to us. This is how we're going to do business. And you took the unattractive pieces away, which makes people want to link arms for longer, in my opinion. At least that's what I've seen
it's true.
The companies I've done.
It's shown to be true, yeah. And we have about approximately 50 testimonials on our website, which is more than anybody I know. And we don't solicit testimonials, but we get a lot of testimonials. And, we get stuff like one of the 4 partners that sold to Blackstone, which you did in your interview, in your intro for me, sold to Blackstone for $1.6 billion. And he said in his testimonial, hiring these guys was the best financial decision I ever made for me and my family. And so we hear that stuff a lot, and that makes our team feel amazing. It makes us feel amazing because, there's 2 things why people work in a career or a job. Like, one is to make money, obviously, but the other is to be involved in something, a part of something that does something that matters, something that's meaningful, something that makes a difference. And I think that's a human craving, maybe not for everybody. Some people just do a job to get a paycheck. But of course, those aren't our people. Our people are almost zealot-like for this model and for what we do for our entrepreneurs. And then we actually track it. So we have a wins tracker that every 6 months that we sit down with our clients, we show them the ROI and money saved and time saved for our efforts, because too often entrepreneurs, they have no idea how these different professionals they use are actually adding value in their life. They just have them because they're like, oh, I'm supposed to have an attorney. I'm supposed to have an accountant. Yep, they're supposed to file my taxes. But what value are you getting in that relationship? And it really has to, it's always just a few things, right? Any relationship, if you're a business owner, it should either make you money, save you time, or reduce your stress. I'll repeat those.
Yeah, say that and say the title. These are the 4 things.
Any employee or team member, but also any professional that you work with, like an accountant, attorney, insurance agent, they should do one of 4 things for you or more, right? If they don't do any of these 4, you need to get rid of them. If they do all 4, that's rare, but that's extraordinary.
But if they do one, they're still valuable.
They're still valuable, yeah, if they do one, if they do it well. Right?
Yes, okay.
And those 4 are, they make you money, they save you money, they save you time, or they reduce your stress. If you had a professional that reduced your stress so much that you're just like, oh, it's such a relief I have that person in my corner, that's worth it, right? But on a rare occasion, you might have 4, but that's rare. But, at least 1, sometimes 2, maybe 3.
Well, and I even like that you said employee.
Well, employees, it's my test of how to view an employee. If I ever sit down with Mimi and we say, okay, let's talk about the other person. Does this person make us money? Nope. Does this person save us money? Nope. Does this person save us time? Nope. Does this person reduce our stress? No, this person increases our stress. This person costs us money, right? That's an employee that you need to get rid of as soon as humanly possible. Luckily, with our team, we go through and we feel amazing, right? Right now we have as good a culture as we've had in 25 years. It's just really extraordinary, but we're working very hard at it, very intentionally. We have advisors in 14 states, clients in 40 states, and we every quarter, and this is very expensive, we fly all of our team out to Scottsdale, Arizona every quarter for an in-person meeting because there's something about being in person you cannot replicate through Zoom. Yeah.
Agreed, which is why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
Because we're doing something very similar for our clients. And, that in-person synergy and transfer of ideas and it's not possible on Zoom.
True.
There's 80% possibility, but I think if you want to get the full connection, it really has to be in person.
Right. I can't even imagine, if I try to keep a relationship with Mimi through Zoom, other than the obvious physical things we want to talk about, but if I was trying to try to keep my marriage together and we could only Zoom, it'd be impossible to have the relationship we have. You have to be together. You have to look each other in the eye. You have to have that. That's just a human part of the relationship, no matter how much Zoom and other things are a kind of a substitute, but nothing's like being in person.
Okay, well, I have one last question for you, and it was something that you and Jordan were speaking about earlier today. And, people always worry about all the things that could happen and could change or could go well, could not go well, or this with the economy or interest rates and all the things. And I think you guys started talking about maybe what could, like maybe not just change, but what could be the same. Like what are different mindsets? Like teach me, I feel like Master Yoda. Teach me though, like,
is that a reference to my age? I don't know.
No, not a reference to your age, but still I'm just thinking like, that is such wisdom to share with people right now that are all freaking out about, the interest rates, the election, the economy, just future of cost of goods. I mean, I'm seeing it, and I have so many clients that are looking at their P&Ls and nervous about cost of labor and just that margin at profitability just skinnier and skinnier. And so I'm thinking, hey, how can we be in a good mindset to carry on and be like, hey, it's okay, like we're still moving forward here.
Well, one thing I'll just say, big picture, that I think every business owner, every entrepreneur needs to think about is, and this is something I ask business owners if I meet them, or if I get a real quick second and someone says, just give some quick advice. And that is, ask yourself a few questions. So ask yourself, who do you serve? And I don't mean like I serve women or I serve men or I serve, people in the state of Colorado. It has to be much more specific than that, because riches is in the niches. If you're serving a huge, massive audience, then you're competing with the Walmarts of the world and you're going to get crushed and you're going to compete on price. So, who do you serve very specifically, and spend time doing that and thinking about that. Who do you serve? What problem do you solve? And don't think about what benefit, because people are not as motivated for a benefit as they are to solve a problem. And be creative, because a lot of times you might think, if you sell people Lamborghinis, that you're not solving a problem. You probably are. There's probably some reason someone buys a Lamborghini.
There's some insecurity deep down in there.
There's some problem they're addressing, right?
Yes.
Usually. So who do you serve? What problem do you solve? And then how do you solve it in a way that's different or better than your competition or than their other options, right? And so that's kind of what you want to really drill deep on, because that will continually help you refresh what you're doing and make it better. Because if you really don't know how you're solving, what problem you're solving, and how you're doing it better or different than their other options, then you can't charge a premium. But if you are doing it in a way that's better, different and better than their other options, then you can charge a premium. And that's the key to having a good business, is being able to charge a healthy profit margin. So that's first big picture. Another big picture thing is, often I meet entrepreneurs and just people in general, they're so into what's going to happen in the future. Like who's going to get elected, what's going to happen with the economy, what's going to happen with interest rates, right? And it's fine to kind of think about those things, and I'll tell you a context of how to think about those things. But the problem is, it's like Yogi Berra said, predictions are hard, especially about the future. You don't want to get so focused in just trying to predict the future instead of focusing on you and your business, because that's the economy you control. You're not going to control who gets elected president. You're not going to control interest rates. You're not going to control all those things, but you can control your economy, your business. And that's what you need to really focus on. Now, the context in which you should think about things like interest rates and the economy and stuff like that is stress testing your company with what ifs. What if we go into a recession? What if my specific group of people that I serve have some sort of problem where they don't have the discretionary, cash flow to be able to pay me, right? What would I do in that scenario? I think those can be healthy, but focus on your economy, your business, do some what ifs so that you're prepared to pivot, and then just focus on, maintain what you're doing and just continue to do it better than anyone else or other options that they have.
I like it. And I think that now more than ever, it's just like dial in, focus on your business. What are some things that you can control? It's not a bad time to reevaluate your expenses, look at where you're sourcing your cost of goods, see if you're overextended on inventory, have some lines of credit like just available in case. I'm just saying, like, these Absolutely. Are things that I'm talking to my clients a lot about, is say, hey, if you're overextended on inventory, and it doesn't matter what kind of business you have, it's like, okay, how can you clear some of that out and free up some of that cash again so that you are in a better position and you're not too heavy or whatever it might be. There's so many things I'm sure going through your mind. What's going through your mind right now? I see it.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. And one thing is know your numbers as a business owner. Know your numbers is so important. And in between my teaching and becoming a financial advisor, I did a stint for about a year as a door-to-door salesman while I was finishing up my MBA.
Nice.
I sold water softeners and drinking systems. But when I first started, our sales manager was this guy called John. We called him Big John. And he was probably 6'4", 250 pounds. He was this huge guy. And you had to go see Big John once a week, and you had to have this report. And the report was like how many doors you knocked on, how many appointments you set, how many presentations, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because he knows those habits lead to X amount of sales.
Yes. And so the first time I sat down with Big John, and I had been a math teacher, there was one box I left empty for whatever reason. And as soon as I sat down, he turned that report around to me, started pounding his big finger in that empty box, and he said, "What number goes in that box?" And I started to tell a story. And Big John interrupted me, and he said, No. A story doesn't fit in that box. A number fits in that box. And if you tell me the number, I already know the story. And that was my first introduction to know your numbers. But here's what happens with entrepreneurs. Often they have a bookkeeper, someone, an accountant, someone who's doing their P&Ls. And they're like, "Oh, I don't understand that stuff. It's a bunch of numbers. That's what my accountant does." And here, how they manage their profit and loss is by, do I have money in the bank account? And that's not a good way to manage your numbers. No. And then they sometimes look at the P&L, and it's not offered up in a way that's very easy to make good decisions. And that's why you want to look at your charter of accounts and make sure that you know that the titles and the entries and the way you're grouping the information is not just what the bookkeeper is used to doing, but the information in a way that really relates to the things that move the needle in your business. And until you have it organized in that way, and it takes a while, you got to really focus on it, then you can't make good, meaningful decisions by looking at the data because it doesn't give you the information that you need. So that's what I would say when it comes to that.
Just to your point, it's like everything that you measure, same thing in bridal. We have the same activities that we're measuring with our clients, with our own store. And it's like, if you don't have X amount of this, plus this, plus this, plus this, whether it's appointments plus closing ratio plus whatever transaction size or door knocks you did, you will not have the outcome, but all those boxes add up. And you can simplify it. I think, to your point, a lot of entrepreneurs are overwhelmed because they're just looking at the total number. And I'm like, no, break it down, go back to the baby steps, and then concentrate on the habit. And that is what will convert you to being a success. You will have the number you want at the end if you start at the beginning.
Can I throw one little tip in there?
Throw it in there.
About lines of credit?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You want to get lines of credit when you don't need the lines of credit.
Right.
But, and here's kind of the ninja trick. If you can, have one bank with what you own and one bank with what you owe. So one bank, you have all your deposits. A different bank, you have your lines of credit. If you can pull that off, right? You could get a HELOC on your home at a bank that's not where you have all your deposits. Now, they all want your deposits and your lines of credit, right?
Of course.
So you might have a little bit to balance it out so that they'll work with you. But why would I say that? Because if you have a line of credit and you pull it, and then you have a problem with your business, the bank has your deposits that they can use to offset what you owe them. So you're not as well protected. And I'll just tell you a personal story. In 2008, when everything happened in 2008, I didn't know, just like everyone, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
Luckily, our business, we didn't have a problem at all. That was good. But I actually, at the time, I sat on the board of a community bank that Mimi and I had invested a lot of money in. So I sat on the board of that community bank, and that was the bank where I had everything I owned, all my deposits. But at a different bank, because I had lived through 2000 to 2002, and that was a tough time, through another bank, I had a home equity line of credit of about $770,000 of a line of credit with the other bank. Well, when I saw everything happening, I just said, hey, I just rather be safe than sorry. Luckily, interest rates were really low. I had my deposit at a different bank, and I had the line of credit at the bank I sat on the board. That's the way it worked. So I pulled the line of credit at the bank I sit on the board, and then I moved it to the bank where I had deposits, right? So the next board meeting, the chief credit officer came right up to me and he said, hey, Jim, I noticed you pulled that line of credit, almost $800,000. And I said, yeah. And he said, where'd you put the money? And I said, wouldn't you like to know? And we both laughed because he knew he'd have to, if things went bad, he'd have to negotiate with me. He couldn't just take my deposits and pay off the line of credit, and bankers hate that. That's why they want to have your line of credit and your deposits. But I was in the kind of the strength position because I had almost $800,000 at the other bank that I could tap if I needed it. Now, it didn't happen. I didn't need it. So once things calmed down, I was able to move it over and pay it off the line. And it was also nice that interest rates were really low, so the cost wasn't that much. But that's a way to kind of insulate yourself against problems like that, because you could pull a line of credit
You're
with one bank
brilliant.
and move it to another.
You are brilliant. That is such a good idea. Wow. I see that. Noted. I got some homework to do. I got some homework to do. I love it. Okay. Well, Jim, where can people interact with you, find out more about you? And you have an amazing book too. Tell us about your book real quick.
It's Beyond $1 Million, the Entrepreneur's Playbook for Expanding Wealth, Freedom, and Time. You can get it on Amazon. In fact, when my mom and dad have both passed away, but when my book came out, my mom was in the hospital, and she called me up one day, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, what's up?" And she said, "Your book's on Amazon." And I go, "Mom, everyone's book is on Amazon." You know,
She's so excited.
and I was like, "How'd you know?" Because my mom wasn't on the internet or anything. And she said, "Well, the nurse came in, and I told her my son wrote a book." And she was like, "Oh, what's the title?" "Beyond $1 Million." And she said the nurse pulled out her phone and turned it to me, and she's like, "Yeah, his book's on Amazon. Your book's on Amazon." My mom acted like,
She
like
freaked
this,
out.
Yeah.
I love it.
Anyway, obviously you can get on Amazon. I have an audio book with that too. But Beyond $1 Million, it's I put a lot of great information in there, and really because tax laws haven't changed significantly, even the tax stuff is a ton of really, really good stuff. And when I wrote that book, I decided I was just going to put everything in there. I wasn't going to hold stuff back. It wasn't going to be a kind of thing where, oh, here's a couple things, but to know more, you've got to do A, B, and C, right? It was so you could read that book and you would get a ton of really cool tips and things that are in there. Kind of like the tip I gave about have your, what you own at one bank and what you owe at a different bank. So yeah, they can reach me that way. They can go to our website, dowealth.com. That's my last name, DEW, the word wealth, WEALTH.com. So there's 2 W's in the middle. So there's info about us there too.
Okay, great. I love it. Well, thank you for being on this show today.
It's been great.
We are so lucky to have you. Now
Yeah.
we're gonna keep going here with the next couple of days with our friends that we're teaching even more. I think this is great.
It's fun to spend time with you. You and Jordan are just extraordinary people. You're in a great business, but more importantly, you're just wonderful people.
Well, thank you for being here, Jim. We really appreciate you
My
making
pleasure.
the time.
pleasure.
So anyways, you guys, I know you got a lot out of this episode. Drop us some comments, even some questions. And you know what? Maybe we'll give one lucky listener a copy of your book.
I like it.
If they want to share this episode with your friends, and then we'll send you a copy. All right. So we'll do that for one person listening. And we hope to see you again on the next episode of the Something New Show. Until next time, make it a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share with a friend. Also, follow the Something New Show on Instagram and Facebook. If you want a fuller experience, watch the show on YouTube to help you create a life worth celebrating.